Now we will see Ampere's circuital law. What is the meaning of this Ampere's circuital law? Previously, we have discussed about Biot-Savart's law. This Biot-Savart's law explains about the magnetic field at a point from the source, maybe at x, perpendicular bisector to the x, or like that. Here it is the linearity of the magnetic field, means we should join the magnetic fields, magnetic points in a particular direction. It creates a lengthy section or a straight wire or a straight line. So at a point along that straight line, we are going to calculate the magnetic field. That is Biot-Savart's law. But actually magnetic field assumed like a concentric circles around the magnet. Means if a magnetic material placed at one point, the magnetic field lines are assumed to be shaped like a concentric circle. Means common center, many circles are derived. So in this case, we should find out the magnetic field in the given circuit, or circle to circuit a localized field. So what should be the magnetic field between that locality is derived by Ampere. So Ampere's circuital law is an explanation of magnetic field, and how to find out this magnetic field? Summing over the field elements within a given loop. Summing over the field elements within a given loop. So summing over means we should find out the integration. So that integral b dot dl, how much we will get, those things we should find out with respect to this reason. So for this purpose, we should assume some constructions. So let us assume a current carrying wire, a straight wire. And this current carrying wire, which is have some cross section and some length, it is an infinite current carrying wire. But the point should be assumed is this current carrying wire is emerging out of the plane. Means suppose if this is a page of a book or this is the board, the field is emerged out, or the conductor is placed like this. So if the electric field is emerged out, magnetic field will rotate in anti-clockwise direction. If electric field emerged out, the magnetic field aligns in anti-clockwise direction. Like this. And we said that we have confirmed that the magnetic fields are in the shape of concentric circles, and the direction of the magnetic field around a current carrying conductor is like this, anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so this is said to be the clear picture about the Ampere's circuital law introduction. But take whenever the magnetic field is extending, there is a possibility further decrease of the magnetic field strength. So for that case, let us assume the first loop is a circular and the next loops are not exactly circular, they are occupying the different shapes. So we will treat this one as a loop 1, closest loop, next loop 2, loop 3, such like that. And we will name the loops like A, B, C, D, E, F like that. So we should find out what is the magnetic field with respect to this B dot dl with respect to AB, next CD, next EF, and summing over. We will find out the magnetic intensity is same or not within the given location. Now the assumption is like this. This is the source of the magnetic field, and we are assuming a circular loop, a first one. Next one, so like this, and there is a coverage which is to cover. What is the need of this type of diagram? It is not at all in the shape of a magnetic field, but we are assuming that this is the point source. Suppose it should be in the center. If this is the source of the magnetic field, this dot, closest loops are in the circular form. As the field extends away from the source, there may take a different shapes. Sometimes intersection also not takes possible. So this is AB. The intersecting of the field lines also not possible whenever the magnetic field is extending. Next is, let us say it is CD. Next it is like this. Now AB is a loop. I am taking a small element in that loop. If the whole length is L, the small element is DL. Now what is the magnetic field? B dot dl is equal to mu naught I by whole divided by 2 pi r into r d theta. So r and r get cancelled, therefore mu naught I by 2 pi d theta is B dot dl. That means in a given infinitesimal lengthy section, or a small section of the length was removed, in this length the magnetic field is this much, mu naught I by 2 pi into d theta. But what about the magnetic field along the whole loop AB? The magnetic field along AB is equal to, we should integrate, B dot dl is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi d theta integral A to B with other limits. So what is the d theta here? Mu naught I by 2 pi integral d theta. So for within a given loop, for a complete rotation, the total angle covered by it is 2 pi. Therefore it is mu naught I by 2 pi into 2 pi. 2 pi get cancelled, therefore it is B dot dl. Therefore B dot dl is equal to mu naught I with respect to AB curve. Similarly for CD also we will get the same thing. EF also will get the same thing. So for every loop we are getting the magnetic field along a given length is mu naught I. So the summation B dot dl is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi theta AB. Along the curve CD, B dot dl is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi into theta CD. So what will be the total magnetic field among the whole sector? So the total field is equal to B dot dl is equal to integral mu naught I by 2 pi into theta AB plus mu naught I by 2 pi into theta CD and so on. So we can take mu naught I by 2 pi as common. So integral theta AB plus theta CD and so on. So this whole will become 2 pi again. Two pi get cancelled. Therefore, B dot dl is equal to mu naught I we will get. So therefore, B dot dl is equal to mu naught I. That means for a given element in the loop we are getting mu naught I by 2 pi, for the whole loop mu naught I, and the total field among all loops is also mu naught I. So for this reason we can say that field is uniformly distributed. We can say the equipotential surface case here we can compare with this. How the electric field equally distributes over a given region, such like that magnetic field also expands or distributed in a equiplane or equidistribution of the magnetic field. This is the very, very important one, and this law is useful per any loop. Suppose if the total length is 2 pi r is equal to mu naught I, therefore B is equal to, we can say, mu naught I by 2 pi r. This is for one given circle. This dl is the length of that circular loop. So this is the information of the Ampere circuital law. So this Ampere circuital law is valid for any curve or any shape. So the magnetic field is independent of the shape. So if the first loop is circular, second loop is not a perfect circle, third loop is almost vanishes. So that's why the magnetic field distribution along a given region is independent of the shape of the loop. The distribution of magnetic field in a given region is independent of shape of the loop. Yeah, for circular loop we got mu naught I, for the curved loop we got mu naught I. So these are the reasons. This B has a possibly 3 values. First one, B is tangential and non-zero constant. This is the possible value of the B. Second one, B is perpendicular to the plane. Third one, B vanishes. Now we will see this, how this B will change and what is the physical significance of those equations. So let us take B dot dl is equal to mu naught IE. In place of small I, we are writing IE. What is this IE? Current enclosed by the loop. We already discussed if it is a total loop, the length of the total loop is 2 pi r because of the circumference of the circle. So B into 2 pi r is equal to mu naught IE. Therefore B is equal to mu naught IE by 2 pi r. This rule implies some laws or some assumptions. What are those assumptions? The first assumption is magnetic field loop of radius r, its strength is same at every point. So this is called cylindrical symmetry or equal distribution. The magnetic field r loop of radius r has same strength in a given region. And this field is formed due to symmetry. This symmetry is called cylindrical symmetry. So magnetic field possesses cylindrical symmetry. This is very, very important. So magnetic field has cylindrical symmetry, means to see anywhere it seems to be same by seeing any position of the location. So second one, it has a clear shape. So magnetic field is inversely proportional to the circumference of the circle. So if circumference of circle is reduced to, then field will increase because mu naught and I is not going to change. So what we can understand is field lines has definite shape and they aligns in a particular direction. That is what we can discuss as a point 2. So what is this point? This field aligns from north to south, as north is a high pole, south is a low pole. The field aligns from north to south, as north is high pole strength, south is low pole strength. It has a particular direction. It depends, it is a clockwise alignment or anti-clockwise alignment. It depends upon the poles of the magnet. Mostly if current is coming out of the page, then the magnetic field aligns in an anti-clockwise direction. If current is going into the page, a perpendicular distribution, we can say that magnetic field aligns in clockwise direction on the page. So these alignments should be understood. There are two more assumptions with respect to the equation. Third one is, suppose I took a wire of infinite length. Even though the wire of infinite length, the wire is infinite in length, the field due to it at a non-zero distance is not infinite. Even though the wire of length is infinite, the field due to it at a non-zero distance is not infinite. Not infinite. When this field will become infinite, when the distance from the source to the point is approached very close. So if B is proportional to current and inversely proportional to R, this B should be infinite, means R should be 0. We have discussed this equation, B is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi R, where mu naught and 2 pi are constants, leave it. So the field produced by an amount of current which is passing through a conducting wire is directly proportional to the current enclosed in it and inversely proportional to the distance. So if R approaches to 0, then B approaches to infinity. This point is very, very important. Non-zero means more than 0, means it's not 0. Maybe 1, 0.5, whatever it may be. But when it is approaches towards the magnetic source, then field will become infinite. That is the meaning of this one. So the whole thing we can understood by a Fleming's right hand rule. So what is this Fleming's right hand rule? Let us take this marker. It is assumed to be a conductor. and I am grasping this conductor in my hand. See the direction. Thumb, curled fingers. Thumb indicates the direction of electric field. The curled fingers indicates the direction of magnetic field. This marker indicates the position of conductor. So, thumb indicates the direction of electric field. As well as the curled fingers indicates the direction of magnetic field. Curled fingers indicates the direction of magnetic field. The marker indicates the direction of or position of the conductor. So this is one of the way to understand the relationship and direction between electric field and magnetic field. This law is useful for any shape of the magnetic field and any layer. This is called Ampere's circuital law. See this diagram. This diagram is giving some information. With respect to this information, we should find out the magnetic field. So the figure shows this figure. Shows the circular cross section of a long straight wire of radius A carrying steady current I. So like this. The current is uniformly distributed across this cross section. Calculate the magnetic field in the region R less than A and R greater than A. See the first one, R less than A. This is a conducting long straight wire which has the magnetic field distribution like this. R less than A means, so this is A, this is R, so R less than A means within this circular loop, the dotted one. Here the field is uniformly distributed. One radius is R, another radius is A. So the enclosed current is IE. So I into A, therefore pi R square by pi A square. So pi get cancelled, it will be I into R square by A square. So we know that B is equal to mu naught IE by 2 pi R. So mu naught, what is IE? I R square by A square by 2 pi R. This 2 pi R goes up. So mu naught into I R square by 2 pi R A square. So this R and R get cancelled. So this R and R get cancelled. The answer we will get mu naught I by 2 pi A square into R. So therefore we will get B is proportional to R. As well as if this one goes extension, so in R greater than A situation we will get B is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi R. The next concept is solenoid. So what is this solenoid? A lengthy solenoid or a large solenoid. Solenoid means it is nothing but we will take a wire of length L, So this lengthy wire, when compared to the radius of the solenoid, length should be more. So length is much greater than radius of the solenoid. So what we can understand, it is a wire of length L which is wounded on an insulating rod This rod's diameter or radius should be less than the length. So the length of the wire is more than the radius of the rod where we are wounding the wire, or maybe it is a insulating material. So the wounded on an insulating rod, and that each turn in a helical path, this winding is in helix path like this. Continuous. So this is an insulating rod wounded like this, and what we can understand, it is in helical path. Each neighboring turn acts as a circular loop. Acts as circular loop. This is the sample diagram of the solenoid. This solenoid is useful in producing the higher magnetic fields. So to use the higher magnetic fields, TVs and radio sets and many electrical devices contains a solenoid inside it, or as a part of interior, to produce the higher magnetic fields and to give the picture and sound clarity clearly when compared to the other devices. So as we know that B is equal to mu naught Ni by 2R. N is number of turns. By increasing the number of turns, we can increase the magnetic field. So this concept is leading to explain the solenoid formation. Now we will see what is the direction of magnetic field of solenoid, interior, exterior, and the relating equation part. See, this is the exterior part of the solenoid, a stretched out exterior form of solenoid. So what we can understand from this explanation is, yes, this is a loop formation. So how the loop is transforming? So one end to the another end like this, and the field between them is cancel out like this. See the orientation of the charge here anti-clockwise, when it is attached to the another one clockwise. These two are connected through the loop wires. This one is said to be loop formation of the solenoid. So this is the stretched out shape of a solenoid exterior part, which explains about the alignment of magnetic field. Understood? So one more thing, this alignment is going to cancel each field element with each other. This is anti, this is clockwise, this is anti-clockwise, this is normal clockwise direction. They used to cancel. Within the loop, the field will become zero. So this is a simple formation of the solenoid magnetic interior, and this solenoidal explanation and the example and the equation part of the solenoid will be given in the next section. So let us take a rectangular loop. We can say it as an Amperian loop. The rectangular loop formation is like this. So we are drawing the number of field lines. So I have took one small section of this rectangular, this part and this part, and draw the perpendicular. AB, CD. And this geometry, this part is outside of the rectangular loop, and here we should not expect any magnetic field. So magnetic field along CD is 0. And the perpendicular components AD and BC is also 0. BDS cos theta, cos 90 is 0. So we can expect the field within the element AB which is inside the rectangular loop. So field due to a section AB, we should find out. Initially we know that BL is equal to mu naught I. Let us take this length is h. From here to here, it is at a position of h. So BL is equal to mu naught IE. We can write IE in enclosed current, where IE is equal to IE into n number of turns into position of the turn. So therefore BH is equal to mu naught into INH. H and H cancel, so therefore B is equal to mu naught Ni. So in solenoid, if you want to increase the magnetic field strength, you should increase the number of turns, or you should increase the amount of current passing through it, where the mu naught is the constant. So therefore B is proportional to N and B is proportional to I. So this point is very, very important one to increase the strength of the magnetic field due to the solenoid. So this application is useful to receive the higher amount of the magnetic fields in large circuits like TV, radio, telecommunication systems, computers, and all the modern technology which are based on the electromagnetic waves. They following the whole equation to produce the higher magnetic fields and to expel the magnetic fields to the receiver. See this problem. A solenoid of length 0.5 meters. Length is 0.5 meters. Okay. Has a radius of 1 centimeter. So we can write 10 to the power of minus 2 meters. And is made up of 500 turns. It carries a current of 5 amperes. I is equal to 5 amperes. What is the magnitude of the magnetic field inside the solenoid? We know that B is equal to mu naught Ni. We should not substitute N is equal to 500 because these are the number of turns for a given length. How many number of turns are there for a unit length? We should find out. Number of turns per unit length. So N is equal to 500 by 0.5. It will be 1000. Continue. So N is equal to 1000 turns per meter. So L is equal to 0.5 meters, R is equal to 10 to the power of minus 2 meters. So therefore L by R we will get approximately 50. So that's why we can say we should use the lengthy solenoid formula. So L by R is approximately 50. So therefore B is equal to mu naught Ni, where mu naught is equal to 4 pi into 10 to the power of minus 7. N is equal to 1000, we can write 10 cube, where I is equal to 5 amperes. 4 pi into 5 into 10 cube into 10 to the power of minus 7, 10 to the power of minus 4. Twenty pi into 10 to the power of minus 4. So 2 pi into 10 to the power of minus 3. 6.28 into 10 to the power of minus 3 Tesla. So it is divided by 10 into 10. You will get 2 pi into 10 to the power of minus 3 Tesla, where 2 pi is equal to 6.28 into 10 to the power of minus 3 Tesla. So this much field is there inside the solenoid. Next, the toroid. So the toroid. Toroid is identical to solenoid or similar to solenoid. Why this similarity exists? Solenoid is a lengthy wire which has n number of turns along its length with equispacing. Each turn acts as a concentric loop. Now this lengthy wire is folded in a shape of circle, that is nothing but the toroid. So it was folded in a shape of circle. So this whole diagram is a lengthy, bounded on the length. Now it is bended like this. So it will be like this. A circular, along that wire is winding like this. So like this. But the problem is that, so toroid is a hollow metallic ring. On that one metallic wire is wounded like this. Okay, insulating rod which is bounded, which is molded in a shape of circle with respect to the solenoid structure. Inside or interior of the toroid or exterior of the toroid, field is 0. In interior or exterior. For this problem, so it means at any point B is going to 0. To eliminate this problem, we should check the sectional view of the magnetic field inside the toroid. Sectional view means we should assume the magnetic field loops as a concentric circles around the fixed point. So within each loop we are going to find out the B and summation. There also we will get the 0. But for the whole number of turns we will get the expression. So the sectional view of the toroid will be like this. This is one. This is one. And we can draw another also. Maybe this is the center. So within this loop, this is the loop, loop 1. This is loop 2. This is loop 3, loop 4, like that. We know that BL is equal to mu naught IE. What is this length? 2 pi r. Where mu naught is constant, but current enclosed in this loop is 0 because field always emanates out. So no current exists within that loop. So the current enclosed by a loop 1 or loop 2 or loop 3 is 0. That's why we can write mu naught into 0, the whole will become 0. So it is 2 pi r1 for loop 1. Similarly, L2 is 2 pi r2, corresponding B2 is 0. And L3 is 2 pi r3, corresponding B3 is also 0. It follows the symmetry. This is symmetrical relations making the B as 0. But for whole number of turns n, we are going to find the expression. So what we can understand is, this is the loop structure. This is also one of the loop structure. These are all the points. So this is the source of the magnetic field. So let us suppose for the whole n turns, the current enclosed by the n turns is, let us say, Ni. Therefore, BL is equal to mu naught IE for n turns IE or current enclosed by the loops or turns is equal to Ni. number of turns into current enclosed in each loop. So therefore BL is equal to mu naught Ni. What is this L? For a whole loop, the length of the loop is 2 pi r, circumference of the circle. Therefore, B into 2 pi r is equal to mu naught Ni. So, therefore, B is equal to mu naught Ni by 2 pi r. So, what is this N? N is equal to average circumference into, in that circumference, number of turns. So N is equal to average circumference is 2 pi r. In that one, N number of turns are there. So again we should substitute N is equal to 2 pi r n. Therefore B is equal to mu naught into 2 pi r n into I by 2 pi r. This 2 pi r get cancelled. Now I got the value mu naught N I. Again this mu naught N I is similar to the solenoid. So in the beginning of this concept we said that toroid is similar to solenoid. With respect to this equation, it is proved. Next one, the moving coil galvanometer. So, moving coil galvanometer. Galvanometer is a sensitive device which senses the small amounts of currents and the direction of current. And one more thing, we can make this galvanometer to work as a ammeter, to work as a voltmeter. So how it will be possible, we will discuss in this brief things. So galvanometer is a sensing device, we know that. It has a spring. Whenever you applied the certain amount of current, the spring experiences the electromagnetic induction. That's why it rotates, and this rotation tends to restore in the original position, which creates the torque. And this torque helps to find out the galvanometer constant, and next the shunt resistance concept, like that. So this is the structure of moving coil galvanometer. North and south poles of a magnet. So one circular coil, inside one spring, and there is a pivot. Okay, this pivot is helping to keep the coil rotates freely and not to be come out of the path. And these arrow marks are nothing but the direction of the magnetic fields when it is placed between north and south. This north is uniform magnetic field and S is a permanent magnet, and there is a pointer which gives the value of deflection. So how it will works? Whenever this moving coil galvanometer along which is connected with the spring and this pivot placed between the two magnets, means we are injecting a certain amount of magnetic field onto the moving coil galvanometer's structure. Then because of the applied magnetic field when it is placed between north and south, it experiences a torque because it used to rotate like this, and inside the spring compresses. When it is rotating maybe towards right or left, there is a possibility for the compression of the spring. So two forces are acting. One is magnetic force inside the galvanometer, that is nothing but the force of compression, nothing but the tensional force. These two forces both are perpendicular to each other because one force, compression force is like this, magnetic force is like this. These two forces are perpendicular to each other. That's why it creates a torque. So the torque is equal to NIAB. Force into perpendicular displacement, ILB into displacement. But whenever this coil rotates towards the right or left with respect to the applied field, the spring compresses, it won't be in the compressed state. It tries to expand, or it tries to comes to the original state. So when it is coming to the original state, it is nothing but a counter torque is developed within the spring to oppose the external force. So that counter torque is related with the spring, so it has spring constant and rotational constants. So the counter torque due to spring is equal to K phi. Now we can find out K phi is equal to NIAB. Therefore, phi is equal to NAB by K into I. This NAB by K is called galvanometer constant. Galvanometer constant. So this pointer moves from left to right or right to left with respect to the position of the spinning of this coil. So which points to the direction of current and the amount of current generated because of this applied magnetic field. So this is the phi, NAB by K is galvanometer constant. So this galvanometer, we can use it as a meter and voltmeter. Galvanometer can convert to ammeter, can convert to voltmeter. Ammeter means which is useful to measure the current. Voltmeter measures the voltages. To connect the ammeter, I is equal to V by R. This expression will come in that Ohm's law and the resistances which are connected in parallel. V is equal to I by R. V is equal to IR, I is equal to V by R. In series, we can get R is equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3. Now we will see how this coil galvanometer or moving coil galvanometer acts as ammeter as well as voltmeter. Now we will see MCG as a meter. Where MCG is moving coil galvanometer. So ammeter current. Ammeter is a device which uses to measure the current. By applying the Ohm's law, I is equal to V by R. That is the Ohm's law expression. If you want to get the V by R expression where V is constant, we will get I is proportional to 1 by R. So this expression will come when 2 or 3 resistors are connected in parallel. So there is a moving coil galvanometer G. It has some resistance Rg. And this galvanometer should work as a meter. For this purpose, we should connect a resistance in parallel to the galvanometer. The resistance what we are connecting to the galvanometer resistance is shunt resistance Rs, where Rs is equal to shunt resistance. And Rg is equal to resistance of galvanometer. Rs is equal to shunt resistance, Rg is equal to resistance of galvanometer. Now, this Rg and Rs are connected in parallel to each other, then this galvanometer will work as a meter. So how we will see? If Rg and Rs are parallel to each other, then what is the effective resistance? 1 by R effective is equal to 1 by Rg plus 1 by Rs. Therefore, Rg Rs is the LCM. So we will get Rs plus Rg is equal to 1 by R effective. So therefore, R effective is equal to Rg plus Rs by Rg. 1 by R effective is equal to Rs plus Rg by Rg Rs. Therefore, R effective is equal to RGRS by RG plus RS. This should be the effective resistance for the working of a galvanometer as a meter. If suppose RG is much greater than RS, then it will become RG by RG and R effective will become 1. If RG is much less than RS also, it will become 1 ohm of resistance. So in this case, there will be a deflection in the galvanometer needle. The pointer will deflect from one point to another point. So how much deflection is there for unit current is called sensitivity of the galvanometer. Sensitivity of galvanometer. So what is the sensitivity of galvanometer? The amount of deflection per unit current. Amount of deflection per unit current is called sensitivity of the galvanometer. And there is an expression for the sensitivity of the galvanometer also. We know that phi is equal to NAB by K of I. So thus that I am bringing to the left hand side. NAB by K. Phi deflection, I current. So deflection by current is equal to NAB by K. This NAB by K is sensitivity. We can write ESG, sensitivity of the galvanometer. Next one, we will see MCG as voltmeter. Next, moving coil galvanometer as voltmeter. Voltmeter is a device which is useful to measuring the voltages or potential difference across a conductor or across the given points. So from Ohm's law, V is equal to IR. So V is proportional to R. So if you want to get the R value, R effective, these resistances should be connected in series, then only we can able to find out the voltage. So that's why for galvanometer resistance, we should connect a resistor called shunt resistance in series. So this is the galvanometer. It has the resistance RG and we should connect a shunt resistance in series RS. So for this section, what is the effective resistance? R effective is equal to RG plus RS. Suppose if RS is greater than the RG, the effective resistance will become RS. If RG is greater than RS, effective resistance will become RG. Then it will be worked as a voltmeter device. So RG plus RS. Previously we have discussed about the current sensitivity in ammeter. Pi by I is equal to NAB by K. Now we are going to find out the voltage sensitivity. Voltage sensitivity. We know that phi is equal to NAB by K into I. And we am getting phi by V is equal, because voltage sensitivity, deflection per unit amount of voltage is equal to NAB by K into I by V. V is equal to IR. See here. V is equal to IR. V by I is equal to R, but here I by V, therefore may I write I by V is equal to 1 by R. So therefore I am substituting I by V is equal to 1 by R. Therefore voltage sensitivity phi by V is equal to NAB by K into 1 by R. From this expression, voltage sensitivity is inversely proportional to the resistance. If resistance is more, voltage sensitivity is going to less. So from this, V is again proportional to R. We proved this. V is proportional to R. So phi by V is inversely proportional to R. So we got current sensitivity pi by I is equal to NAB by K, and pi by V is equal to NAB by K into 1 by R. Suppose if number of turns are increased to 2n, R is increased to 2R. So what will be the change in voltage sensitivity or current sensitivity? There will be no change, because this rule was an implication of Ohm's law. In Ohm's law, a conductor of length L, it was cut into two halves, L by 2 and L by 2. Their resistance will become 2R. So R by 2. So R is proportional to length. So such like that, because of the implication of Ohm's law or implication of Ohm's law, implication. If n becomes 2n or R becomes 2R, there will be no change in phi by I or phi by V. No change in phi by I or phi by V, where phi by I is current sensitivity, where phi by V is voltage sensitivity. So such like that, we can convert a moving coil galvanometer by connecting a resistance in series as a ammeter, as a voltmeter, in parallel as a ammeter. See this problem. In the circuit, the current is to be measured. What is the value of the current if the ammeter shown is a galvanometer with resistance Rg 60 ohms, is a galvanometer described in but converted into an ammeter by a shunt resistance Rs 0.02 ohms, is an ideal ammeter with zero resistance. See here, the first question is galvanometer with resistance Rg. Shunt resistance is 3 ohms. So what will be the total resistance? The first question, total resistance. What is the value of the current if the ammeter is shown? So the total resistance, first, Rg plus Rs. So what is Rg? 60. Rs 3. Total 63 ohms. So this much of the effective resistance should be there to find the amount of current for the 3 volts. Next one, it is converted to an ammeter by a shunt resistance Rs is equal to 0.02 ohms. So in this case, it will become some 3.02 ohms. So 3 by 3.02 ohms, like that we will get the answer. So 1 by Rg plus 1 by Rs is equal to Rg plus Rs by Rg Rs. Therefore, R is equal to Rg Rs by Rg plus Rs. So what is Rg? 60. What is Rs? 3. Rg plus Rs 63. 180 by 63. If you get this value, we will get approximately 60 by 21. So it will be some 2 point something is the answer. So the 2.66 ohms is the answer for the effective resistance should be there. If it is in parallel with the 0.02 ohms, therefore 1 by Rg plus 1 by Rs is equal to Rg Rs by Rg plus Rs. Therefore R is equal to, so where this Rg Rs by Rg plus Rs is equal to R effective. So Rg is 60, Rs is 0.02 by 60 plus 0.02. It will be 60.02 and that will be some 120. Approximately you will get 0.02 ohms. If this 0.02 ohms is added to this, it will be 3.02 ohms. So therefore Rg plus Rs is equal to 3 plus 0.02 ohms, approximately 3.02 ohms. So therefore I is equal to V by R. From the diagram, V is equal to 3, R is equal to 3.02. So therefore it is 0.99 amperes. For this much of shunt resistance, the current produced is 0.99 amperes. Next one, an ideal ammeter with zero resistance, which is 3 by 3, 1 ampere. The last situation, ideal ammeter with zero resistance. With zero resistance. So we can say I is equal to V by R. So 3 ohms by 3 volts by 3 ohms. V by R. 3 by 3, 1. It will be 1 ampere. So for an ideal ammeter which has zero resistance, it passes 1 unit of current. When it is shunted with 0.02 ohms, it passes 0.99 amperes. When it is shunted with 60 ohms, 60 plus 3, 63 ohms is the effective resistance. Like this, we can understand this moving coil galvanometer problems. So in this lesson, we have started with what is the source of the moving charges, Lorentz field, and magnetic field due to a thin wire, Biot-Savart's law, circular rings, solenoid, toroid, moving coil galvanometer, and the force between the two parallel rods which carry some amount of current. What is the definition of ampere? So these all things we have discussed in these things. So these things will helpful to find out the certain frequency of the electromagnetic waves which was discussed in the lesson electromagnetic waves. So this is the basic introduction about the upcoming lessons.